We've talked at length about the Knights of the Lands Between and the various factions they serve. These warriors fought for their noble masters throughout the Shattering, and continue to protect their claimed lands even today. But they were not the only people living under the employ of the demi-gods. The perfumers served their role for the city of Lanedell. There are various monsters used for muscle to add strength to their forces, and the misbegotten were slaves forced into servitude. Today's topic stands apart from the other servants of the nobles and the gods of the lands between, as they exist somewhere between the roles of knight and servant. Today we are going to explore the pages, fearsome warriors who utilize the skills of various factions to defend those they serve. Who are these mysterious enemies who hid their faces behind what look like burlap sacks? And why do such slender forms contain such destructive power? Let's see what we can learn. Before discussing the lore of the pages, we wanted to take a second to thank you for visiting our channel. If you end up liking this video, or anything in our Elden lore playlist, please consider subscribing. We know subscriptions are considered more of a vanity number these days on YouTube, but they are still considered an important part of boosting a channel in the algorithm, and the only way we can continue to see this amazing community grow and flourish is if we can get in front of more people. If you don't want to subscribe, that's absolutely fine. We just want to let you know how much we appreciate you deciding to listen to our interpretations and outlines of Elden Ring's lore. With that said, let's get back to the topic at hand. The pages are interesting both aesthetically and in their form of combat, as they seem to be somewhat out of place in many areas we can find them. Unlike knights who carry the crests of the demigods they serve and wear their colors, pages wear the same drab brown coats and hoods no matter where you find them. Their armor set shines a light on why this is, with the hood telling us. The unassuming sack-like appearance befits their unseen and unknown stature, and their clothes being described as garb worn by pages who serve the nobility and are mindful to keep them out of harm's way. Traveling wear tailored with exquisite precision to avoid any undue shame for the page's master. With these descriptions, it seems likely the garb of a page is something that was settled on across all factions of the lands between. Those that filled this role, regardless of their master, were meant to be unassuming, simply a servant to nobility, not quite important enough to wear the coat of their faction, but present enough that their appearance was a reflection of their master. If we look at who pages were in the real world, we can see strong parallels to the way the title is used in the lands between. Typically, pages were the young sons of nobility, who used their time as a page to serve a lord, and learn from them in preparation for whatever their life would hold. They served a nobleman, knight, or other high official, and took care of daily chores in exchange for food, lodging, and education. These pages could learn anything their masters saw fit. Skills like horse riding, combat, strategy, even music. Pages would also sometimes accompany their masters into war, and should they survive, had the opportunity to become squires, and perhaps someday, even knights. While the pages of the lands between share some of these traits, even the inclination towards learning music, as pages in the lands between can be seen playing a flute, they seem to be forever stuck in their current role, and the way they fight makes it seem as though this is by design. Given the weapons and skills they use, they seem to be being crafted into a much different kind of warrior than a knight. In the lands between, a page was taught to use two weapons, a slim blade known as an estoc and a crossbow. The estoc is a large piercing sword with a long, hard-bladed edge, which is also capable of slashing attacks. For its large size, it can be wielded rather nimbly, leaving little opportunity for the enemy to counter. This speaks towards weapon training that relied more heavily on speed, precision, and flourish than that of any knights under the employ of the demigods. While they use a crossbow, which involves very little skill, their bolts are actually those of the perfumers. These are bolts created with perfumer techniques, used by nobles' guards and the like. the point of impact explodes, with sparks dealing fire damage. The pages were likely taught to create these bolts on their own, as many are stationed in areas without perfumers to create the bolts for them. This speaks towards the level of trust placed in a noble's page, as the perfumer's skills were highly secretive and sought after. These two forms of battle, when utilized together, make the pages fierce warriors, and much more nimble than the knights real-world pages would aspire to be. With that said, there was actually a form of upward mobility for a page in the lands between. In only 2 areas of the entire world we can find a high page. While the clothing of these enemies is similar to your typical page, it is also much more regal, as the drab browns are replaced with a brilliant white. The high page hood and clothes give us the same background information as the page set, save for one detail. The high pages were selected for special privilege by the noble they serve. What this means exactly is hard to say, as their fighting style is identical to regular pages, aside from their crossbow, which can fire 3 bolts at a time. The only 2 areas we find these enemies are Rea Lucaria Academy and Lanedale Royal Capital, and while one of the high pages in Lanedale seems almost as if he's hiding out in an area no one would expect to find him, the one in the Academy is defending the room containing Azor's glintstone staff, perhaps stationed there by the sorcerer himself, or those who did not want his secrets unveiled to the world. One of the most interesting distinctions between real-world pages and those in Elden Ring comes from the page ashes, which can be found in the cliff-bottom catacombs. The ashes tell us they are the spirit of a page who traveled at the side of the noble he served, uses a piercing sword and crossbow to defend his master. One becomes a page merely by accident of being born into obscurity. Nothing is asked of ability, talent, or volition. So unlike the pages of the real world who came from noble families and received their education through the practice of essentially interning as a page, those of the lands between could be taken from anywhere. In fact, it would make more sense if the pages we find in-game have no ties to nobility themselves, as they're never offered the opportunity to become anything more than a high page, and overcome their status in favor of something higher in society. The pages we fight throughout the lands between are plucked from obscurity by nobility, regardless of ability, talent, or volition. The only thing that matters is that they can be crafted into perfect servants, willing to do whatever is asked of them by their master. With this understanding, the hood they wear takes on a more sinister tone. As a page in the lands between, you only exist for your master, to the point where you were nothing more than an extension of them. Your clothes were pristine, and your face was hidden, because you were no longer a person. You were simply an appendage of the noble you served. And given the state of most of the nobles in the lands between, you can see how deeply the conditioning of the pages is rooted. Why else would a nimble, powerful warrior continue to serve an emaciated, skeletal noble post-shattering, unless it was all they were and all they believed they could be? Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the pages we find throughout the lands between. We believe the areas we find each page could speak to the specific noble they served, such as Malay Murray of the Shaded Castle. But as he was ousted from his post, perhaps they now serve Elmer of the Briar. What do you think? What nobles or demigods did the other pages serve? Why did the nobles of the lands between decide to create a distinction between a regular page and a high page? Is the music we hear throughout Lanedale that of the pages playing their flutes? Let us know your thoughts and ideas in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss out on any of our lore dives. We look forward to seeing you again for more Elden lore.